And welcome back. And this is Iedo, but before we do any actual exploring around here, I'm just gonna walk around outside a bit. There's something out in back here that I really need to get. And that thing is cake. This cake is absolutely vital to the quest. Do not deny the necessity of the cake. Well, it's not as inconvenient as the bakery in Phantasy Star 1. That one was at the bottom of a dungeon. And you really needed that cake, too. Okay, so Iedo is the town where the Hunters Guild is located. And it's also where the Aeolus fanboys live. This is true. I've already picked up all the ceramic stuff, but the big marketplace stores only sell equipment from other places, not the best stuff you can buy here. So we're going to explore our house. Okay, so our house is a free inn, like all hero houses are. Well, except for the one you can buy in Earthbound. Oh yes, you can never actually loot anything useful to adventuring from other people's houses. Chaz being disorderly. Yeah, Chaz will outright refuse to open other people's cabinets. There's actually a good reason for this, but it's not immediately relevant. It's a good thing, too. Aeolus probably would have socked him if he looked through her stuff. Yeah, Aeolus is a bit cross about her nickname. In the English version, it's because I'm a professional, I don't have time for silly nicknames. But in the Japanese version, that nickname offends me personally, because here it's Aeolus the 8-stroke sword, but in the Japanese version, it was more like rip their guts out Lila. In case where there's a Hunters Guild, there are bound to be subquests. And Phantasy Star 4, even though it was really before subquests became the major thing, still has quite a few. The Hunters Guild subquest unlock over the course of the game as you pass through certain plot points. And the last one doesn't open up until you're pretty well near the end of the game. And apparently, the Sandworm Wrench was in fact asking for trouble. But first, let's go back here. What's one of these? Yeah, the music here, from what I've read, is supposedly a reference to Fantasy Zone. So we're just going to be heading out and doing that subquest. You see, I decided to, to make this a whole lot less awkward to record, I decided to grind myself up to the levels I figured I'd need to do everything in one foul sweep. Which means that, while the Sandworm is normally incredibly tough when you first arrive at Iedo, right now it's actually going to be easier than even I expected. Let's see, look around. Because I ground up to the levels that I did, let's see, I acquired the first real buff of Phantasy Star 4 Deban, which increases defense. From what I can tell, it reduces damage by a fixed amount to a minimum of 1. So the only guy who's in actual danger here is Han, because he can't equip the heavy armor you can buy in Iedo. Throughout this entire video, Han is going to be in near constant mortal danger from the enemies I'll be facing because of this. I guess that's the fate of all casters. Well, dedicated casters. There are no characters that don't have some allotment of special combat abilities that can be used on a limited basis. Once again, I try and fail to use a combination attack because Zahn and Watt gets you Blizzard, which is incredibly powerful against a Sandworm. Oh yeah, speaking of which, after you beat this Sandworm, there's a chance that smaller infant worms that you encounter later, if left alone, isolated and the only monster left on the field, will burrow into the ground and become giant sandworms that are even more powerful than the one I just fought. This was really just for the experience. The dungeon I plan to clear out is actually fairly tough. Ah, fast travel. Money is always useful in Phantasy Star 4. Even if there's no new equipment you can buy at the end of the game, there are still some extremely useful items you can buy to make the late game a fair bit easier. And that's how hunter jobs usually go. You complete the task, you return, and Chaz and Rika have a little talk about the aftermath and whatever all else. So, that cave that no one has returned from. We're gonna go there. Right now. So these are like the blobs we encountered before. Not much different about them, they all resist physical. Almost nothing special about them at all. Well, almost nothing special. Let me demonstrate. Ow. Ow. You see, some monsters have combination attacks, while other monsters just combine. It's actually a decent idea to let them combine, because while they may hurt you a bit more, they generally give much, much more experience together than they do separately. I wanted to try insta-killing it, but it didn't last long enough. There isn't really any equipment in this cave, but... Oh yes, Chaz has acquired his first all-attack skill. So has Rika, but... No, wait, she hasn't done that yet. That comes later. It's not that immediately powerful, but it'll get boosted as we acquire new weapons for Chaz. And this is the other kind of enemy you'll find in the cave. Zio's actual soldiers. They do an extremely random amount of damage, so they might hit you for 5 or 25 on 2 separate attacks. There's nothing at all other special about this cave. Just a couple of items and, you know, the exit to continue the game. Now, speaking of which, I encountered a rather inordinate number of random encounters this time through. In fact, the original raw version of this video was pretty well enormous. It's like 10 minutes longer than the one that you're watching right now. I had to do more editing here than I did on the past 3 videos combined. In fact, if VirtuaDub couldn't edit, I might have had to given up the idea of doing a Let's Play of this. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of healing in this video. Random encounters may be short in this game, but they're generally rather dangerous, at least the ones that are appropriate for where you are in the game. Ah, good, a new town where we can rest. We won't be sleeping easy, will we? Yeah, right now Cattery is basically Jonestown. So we're gonna poke around here just a little bit. Well, he's certainly working hard at it, that's for sure. Even if that was the truth, I don't think you'd be counted among the best and brightest. Let's leave the crazy people here. So we're actually going to Zio's fort right away, but I made an emergency save here first in case things went really south. Oh, so that's what an invisible barrier looks like. Okay, Zio's fort is actually pretty short if you just go straight to the top and fight the boss, but it can take a pretty long time if you're going to grab all the treasures. I'm going to grab all the treasures. And I can't be bothered to fight these guys normally, so I just do whatever I can to end this encounter. Okay, the reason instant death techniques are so useful in this game is because they generally use skills so they don't affect your ability to use other abilities. And secondly, there are some monsters that are really nasty if left alone, And third, they don't work all the time, but they work enough to be a worthwhile option. Now those tech users can be especially nasty because, well, Grizz is actually weak to Watt. His magic defense is not that low. And this skip is where I went back to town and rested to bring back Grizz. Also, a fun little trick is that when a character is paralyzed or flatlined, their character sprite on the overworld doesn't go through their walk animation, they're just sort of pushed or pulled along by the rest of the group. That is actually very useful. It's a revival item. You can only find those most of the time. While there are certainly revival techniques, we don't have any right now. Okay, I left this one up because of Shadow Sabers. Now, the Shadow Saber can actually be pretty annoying because he can cast that, defense up buff that we used in the Sandworm fight. However, something about them is that they occasionally drop a Shadow Sword, which is a fair bit weaker than the sword we have now, but has a chance of instantly killing whatever it hits. I go for the damage because I prefer not to trust to good fortune most of the time. Oh yeah, Han also acquired the next level of basic healing, which is about 2.5 times more effective than his really basic one. It's actually more points efficient. Laser sword? Yeah, forget it, it's Phantasy Star. Sometimes you find lightsabers. Oh yeah. I bought a huge stack of monomates so I wouldn't use too many technique points because I know I'd be tromping around the fort for a while. Turns out that I actually filled up all of my item slots by accident. But we don't have anyone who can use staves. Yet, anyway. That stairway will take you directly to the boss, but we're not going there yet. We're going to make Han just a little bit less fragile. Some people will equip Han with 2 shields, but I like to give him at least the vestige of a physical attack. Okay, that skip there was so you wouldn't have to suffer through watching me walk through all the way back up here again. Yeah, I'm technically rather over-leveled for this next boss, from what the game expects you to have. But in truth, I'm still in a very great danger from the boss of this tower. And here he is. Okay, so Juza is one of those bosses where the difficulty is almost entirely dependent on how often he uses one of his attacks, in this case, Force Flash. It's an attack that hits everybody in your party, and we don't have any all-heal techniques or skills available yet. Not too worried about that because the ceramic armors we get actually give us fire resistance, and Han has a very high magic stat, so he doesn't take much damage from it. I finally found the skills menu. Go me. He just grew another pair of arms. So yeah, that's Force Flash. Hits everyone for about 50. Except for Han, who can actually resist that kind of damage. I probably should have done more healing, but I wanted this boss to get as few turns as possible. What's worse is that there will actually be regular enemy versions of him out later on that also use Force Flash. Yeah, I've had fights with this guy where he's actually used Force Flash twice in a row. He was actually being surprisingly cooperative this time around. Okay, I didn't want to take any chances up here, so... Okay, and here we go to the top of the tower. You know what? Forget it. You're all going to die. You. 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 Yeah, Han's instant death ability is a technique, and I think there's only one character who doesn't have an instant kill skill or tech. And here's Demi. More details on her later. She will actually revive KO'd party members, which is what medic power can do. But this is really to make sure that the next scene actually works properly. And here's Zio. Watch your language, this is Phantasy Star, not Gears of War Star. Oh, he's one of those wizards. Somehow reasoning with him probably won't work. Yep. Fine observation there, Professor Science. Dark Force! Oh man, this is bad. For those of you who aren't that familiar with the classic Phantasy Star series, this basically means that Zio is a Cthulhu worshipper. No buff can stand up to us. I would like to revise that statement. I think by now you've already guessed how winnable this battle is. But I felt like putting on a bit of a show anyway. Didn't seem right for our purposes to just sort of have everyone sit on defend or macro or whatever, at least all the time. This isn't just bad, this is worse. Yeah, one thing I like in Phantasy Star 4 is that the writers remember that your characters actually have these techniques on hand. Well, that's just great. You know, I'm glad Chaz is willing to swallow his pride about this. He's not gonna rush in there like some other hero and just beat his head against the wall for a while. Oh god, a tower. Towers are almost never fun. That's a bit amazing. The last Land Rover we had was in Phantasy Star 1. Chaz is kicking Han out of the party and not giving his money back. Well, the mission was a partial success. We rescued Demi, but Aelus is down, Han is out of the party. And we cannot defeat Zio right now anyway. See ya next time.